I never thought a tropical getaway would be the place where my marriage came undone. Lisa and I had been together for 12 years. We had shared birthdays, lazy weekends, long work days, and everything in between. We were not perfect, but we had a rhythm, a history, a life we had built, and I always believed we had trust. When she brought up taking a real vacation, a week away somewhere warm and quiet, I jumped at the chance. Not just another weekend trip or cabin in the woods. This was something more. A week-long stay at a high-end beach resort, just the two of us. No work, no phones, no distractions. I figured maybe we needed this. Maybe it would bring us back to how we used to be. But the second we touched down, something felt different. Lisa lit up in a way I had not seen in years. Smiling constantly, looking around like she was waiting for something or someone. I told myself it was just a change of scenery. Just the sun and sea doing their job. I tried to shake it off. Our first day, there was everything I hoped for. We sipped drinks by the pool, walked barefoot in the sand, had fresh seafood while a band played under the stars. Lisa held my hand, laughed at my jokes, leaned her head on my shoulder. It felt right for a while. But by the second day, I started seeing things. Little things. She suddenly had a hunger for adventure. I want to see more of the island, she said. Not just sit around the pool. That alone was strange. Lisa never cared much for exploring. Her perfect vacation was a book, a beach chair, and a cocktail. But now she was signing us up for hikes, boat rides, city tours. She was restless, almost wired. That was the day we met him. Marco. Tall, tanned. That slick, easy confidence that makes you want to knock a guy's teeth in for no reason. Women in our group hung on his every word. He had some kind of accent that made even the dumbest sentence sound like a romantic whisper. Everything about him was polished and practiced. Lisa noticed him the second he started talking. While I was admiring the cliffs and the ocean views, she was watching Marco. She laughed too hard at his jokes, asked too many questions. Her attention was not on the waterfalls. It was on him, and he played right into it. When he handed out snorkeling gear, he helped her adjust hers a little longer than needed. His hand stayed on her shoulder just a second too long. She didn't flinch. She smiled. I saw it all. I clenched my jaw and looked away. Told myself I was imagining things. Told myself not to be that guy, the jealous husband inventing stories. But by the next day, I could not lie to myself anymore. Lisa started waking up before me. Gone before I even opened my eyes. Always left the same kind of note. Off to a morning tour. Didn't want to wake you. Love you. The first time, I let it slide. She knew I liked to sleep in on vacation. But after the third note, something shifted. She always came back glowing. Hair damp, skin warm and flushed. She would kiss me, but her eyes were somewhere else. It felt like she was coming back out of obligation. That night at dinner, it all fell into place. We had a table near the water, candles flickering, music in the background. I reached for her hand across the table. She hesitated. For the first time in 12 years, she did not take my hand right away. I looked where she was looking. It wasn't the food. It wasn't the view. It was him. Marco was across the room, leaning on the bar, his shirt unbuttoned just enough to show off his tan and that smug grin. Lisa's eyes were on him, locked in, like she had forgotten I was even there. I pulled my hand back. She barely noticed. That was when it hit me. Lisa was not really on this trip with me. She was here with him. She just had not told me yet. I wanted to say something. Wanted to get up, knock my chair over, walk out, make her feel the way I felt in that moment. But I didn't. I just sat there, listening to her laugh at nothing, watching her eyes wander, seeing her barely eat. Marco left the bar not long after. On his way out, he looked right at her, and she reacted. Her chest rose, just a little too sharply, like she had been holding her breath. When she finally looked at me, there was a flicker of guilt in her eyes. Not because of anything I could accuse her of, but because she knew that I knew. You okay? She asked, picking up her drink. Her voice was light. Too light. Yeah, I said, and forced myself to chew a piece of grilled fish I could barely taste. She made small talk after that. About the beach, the view, some sights she had seen on her morning tour. She smiled like nothing had changed. But it had. Back in the room, she turned away from me in bed. I stayed awake for hours, staring at the ceiling fan. Lisa lay beside me, facing the balcony, her breathing calm. like she was already dreaming of somewhere or someone else. When I woke up the next morning, she was gone again. No note this time. The bed was cold on her side. My phone had no messages. I stepped out onto the balcony, thinking maybe she was out there. Nothing. It was just me. I looked at the time. Just past 8 a.m. I threw on a shirt and stepped outside. The resort was already buzzing. People with drinks in hand, kids playing in the sand, couples snapping pictures of the water. I headed toward the lobby, checked the excursion board. A list of that day's activities. And then I saw it. Private boat tour. Departed 7:30 a.m. My chest tightened. Lisa hated boats. She always said she got seasick. Every time I brought up cruises, she shut it down. But now she was out on the water. Without me. I knew. I turned away and walked back to our room. When I got there, I sat on the bed for a long moment. Then I reached for her suitcase and opened it. I wasn't looking for a clue. I didn't need one, but I had to see it anyway. There were missing pieces. Empty spots between her folded clothes. Swimsuits gone. Dresses missing. And then I saw something else. Her phone charger. Lisa never forgot her charger. Unless she was not coming back. That was the moment it became real. She was gone. Not just for the morning. Gone. And maybe she had no plans of returning. The rage settled in slow, quiet, steady. No panic. No tears. Just a low burn. I had given her everything. A life. A home. Trips like this one. And she threw it all away for some smooth-talking guide who flirted with tourists for a living. I stood up, grabbed my wallet and phone, and left the room. The resort kept spinning like nothing had happened. Laughter, music, the scent of coconut oil, and sunscreen in the air. I walked to the marina. The docks were buzzing. Boats moving in and out. People snapping photos. I stood there, staring at the open water, knowing she was out there somewhere with him. And I clenched my jaw hard enough to hurt. A staff member approached me. Polo shirt, name tag, Miguel. Looking for a tour, sir? I shook my head, then paused. What's running this morning? He started reading from his clipboard. Catamaran rides. Diving trips. Private boats. Private boats, I repeated. How many went out? 2, he said. One at 6:30. One at 7:30. I pulled a 50 from my wallet and handed it to him. Who took the 7:30 charter? He hesitated, glanced around, then lowered his voice. That was Marcos. Took out a guest. One woman. I nodded. When will they be back? I asked. Depends. Hour or two, maybe. I walked away without another word. Back in the room, I waited. Time dragged. No messages. No calls. Then, finally, footsteps. The door opened. Lisa stepped in. Her skin glowed. Her dress clung damp to her legs. Her hair tangled from the breeze. She looked like someone who had just had the time of her life. And when her eyes found me waiting, I saw it, the panic. She had not expected me to be there. Where were you? I asked, arms crossed. She hesitated, just a second too long. Then she smiled, fake casual. The boat tour ran late, she said. I didn't move. You never told me it was a private boat. My voice was steady. Too steady. Lisa paused, but only for a heartbeat. Most folks wouldn't have caught it. But I did. Then, just like that, she smiled, cool as ever, and walked past me toward the bathroom. It was a last-minute thing, she said, grabbing a towel. You were still asleep, and I figured you wouldn't be interested. Lies. Every word was a lie. I stayed at the doorway while she dried her arms, watching her through the mirror. You could have sent me a message, I said, voice calm. She glanced at me in the glass, expression just a little too calm. I didn't think it mattered, she said. It was just a quick trip. I stepped closer. Who else was on that boat? She stopped for just a second, barely enough to notice. Then she turned toward me with a smile that did not reach her eyes. What's with the questions? She asked. Are you jealous now? She let out a laugh, light and forced. You know, I only want you. It was a performance. Polished, practiced, fake. She was not going to confess. Not unless she had no other choice. And I was done pretending I didn't know. I stepped in even closer, locking eyes with her. Was it Marco? She flinched, but only slightly, then rolled her eyes. Oh, come on, she said, turning away. You're being ridiculous. There was the classic dodge. Turn the suspicion back around. Make me the problem. She had no clue I already had the answer. I wasn't asking because I needed to hear it. I was asking to see how far she'd carry the lie. Lisa tossed the towel on the counter, sighing loud like I was the one out of line. It was just a boat ride, she said. The resort offers private tours. I wanted to try something new. That's it. Nothing weird about it. I held back the anger rising in my chest. So why didn't you tell me? She shrugged, careless. I figured you wouldn't care. That told me everything I needed to know. She was starting to unravel, just a little. Couldn't hold the eye contact, kept fidgeting with the towel. She knew she was busted. She just didn't know how much I already knew. I looked at her for a long second, then gave a nod. All right, I said, voice steady. Lisa blinked. That's it. I smiled slow, even. Yeah, that's it. And without saying another word, I turned around and walked out of the room. She called my name, but I kept going. I had what I needed now. This game she was playing? It was about to flip. Outside, the heat pressed down like a weight, but I barely felt it. My head was clear. Too clear. I thought about the way Lisa froze when I said Marco's name. The look in her eyes when I told her, okay. She had expected yelling, screaming. She had prepared herself for outrage. But calm? Calm rattled her. Cheaters always prepared for the storm. They didn't know what to do when the water went still. I headed to the beach bar, ordered something cold, and sat where I could see the whole stretch of resort in front of me. Music played, people laughed, waves rolled in soft and steady. I didn't laugh. I didn't relax. I just watched. And then I saw him. Marco. He was down near the marina, chatting with a few other guides, leaning back like he owned the damn place. He laughed too easily, moved too confidently, like he hadn't just spent the morning on a boat with my wife. I set my drink down, stood, but I didn't walk straight to him. That would have been too easy. Instead, I took a long route around the marina, pretended to look at a small souvenir stand, lingered near a couple looking at sun hats, waited. When I circled back, Marco was still there, still smiling, still relaxed. That changed the second he noticed me walking toward him. His smile slipped, just a bit. Good. I stopped a foot away from him. Hey, I said. He nodded. Hey, man. You enjoying your stay? I smiled. Sure am. Place is beautiful. I glanced toward the boats. Nice day for the water, I said. Heard there was a private tour this morning. Marco shifted a little. Yeah, we had one go out. I nodded slowly. You're in a lot of those. He shrugged. Sometimes. Depends on demand. Some folks want something more personal. That word hung in the air. Personal. I locked my eyes on him. Who was on today's ride? Marco hesitated. Not long, but long enough. I don't really keep track of names, he said. I just take people out, show them the sights. Liar. He knew exactly who she was. I stared at him, then nodded. I'm sure you do. He started to glance away, nervous now. I stepped in a little closer. Let me give you some advice, I said quietly. He stiffened. If you're going to mess around with another man's wife, I said, voice low, maybe don't do it in front of him. His face changed. Right there, in that moment, he knew. No more pretending. His jaw tensed. Look, man, I cut him off. You so much as glance at her again, I break your damn jaw. He raised his hands, trying to play it cool. Hey, I'm not trying to start anything. I'm just doing my job. I stepped back, nodding. Then do it somewhere else. And I walked off before he could say another word. Not because I was done, because I was just getting warmed up. I didn't head straight back to the room. I needed time to figure out my next move. Lisa wasn't the type to confess. She would lie until her last breath, and then lie some more. That was who she was now. So I had to make her show me. I walked the beach for a while, let the hours stretch. Let her sit in that hotel room and wonder where I was. Let her get nervous. When the sky started to shift orange, I returned. Lisa was on the bed, scrolling through her phone. She looked up fast when I walked in. Relief flashed across her face. Hey, she said. Where have you been? Just out walking, I said, keeping my tone light. She tilted her head. You okay? Yeah, I said, smiling. Actually, I feel great. She relaxed, settled back. She thought she had dodged the bullet. She thought wrong. I sat beside her, leaned back like nothing was wrong. After a few seconds, I glanced at her phone. Hey, I said, can I borrow that for a second? She blinked. What? I need to check something online, I said, holding out my hand. Yours is quicker. Her fingers curled around her phone like it was a lifeline. Her smile stayed, but her posture changed. I mean, your phone's right there, she said, nodding toward the table. I smiled. Yeah, but yours loads faster. And there it was. That tiny pause. That flicker of panic in her eyes. That was the moment I knew. I had her. I let the quiet stretch between us. Let her feel the weight of it. Let her squirm. Then I leaned in just slightly, speaking low and clear. Unless there is something on that phone you do not want me to see. Lisa's breath caught in her throat. That was it. The bluff was over. She froze. Not a flinch, not a blink. Like a deer locked in headlights. Her hand stayed wrapped around her phone, tight enough that her knuckles were going white. I could see her trying to keep her composure, trying to sit still, breathe steady. But it was too late for that. She knew she had been caught. What she did not know yet was just how much I already knew. I leaned back against the headboard like I did not have a care in the world. Real casual. What is the problem? I asked cool and slow. Lisa forced a laugh, a fake little puff of air. Nothing. I just did not get why you need my phone when yours is right there. Weak. A bad dodge. Because I asked for yours, I said, smiling a little. She licked her lips, glancing, barely, for half a second toward the bathroom. She was not thinking about how to explain anything. She was thinking about how to run. I kept my hand out. Go ahead, Lisa. Give it here. She exhaled and shook her head. This is ridiculous. Is it? Yes, she said, louder now, acting offended. It is crazy. What do you think? That I am hiding something from you? I did not answer. I just looked at her. People think silence is nothing. But silence, real, cold silence, will tell you more than shouting ever could. She shifted on the bed, set her phone on her lap, face down. Listen, she said, now using a softer tone, like I was the one being unreasonable. I feel like something is going on with you lately. You have been acting off ever since we got here. Like you are not even yourself. There it was. The reversal. Make me the issue. Try to gaslight me into backing down. I nodded. You are right. She blinked. What? You are right, I said again. I have been acting different. You want to know why? She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. So I leaned in again and told her. Because I know. Silence. You could have heard the tide from a mile off. You could have heard a pin hit the carpet. Lisa did not blink. Her whole body stayed still. Then, slowly she smiled. Not a real smile. A rehearsed one, like she had practiced it in the mirror. Know what? She asked, tilting her head like she was confused. I gave her a quiet laugh. Come on, Lisa. She gave a chuckle of her own. Forced. You were just being paranoid. Paranoid, I repeated. Yes. You are blowing this out of proportion. We are on vacation, and you're acting like I am cheating on you or something. I went on a boat ride, that is all. What? You think I'm sneaking around with the tour guide? That guy. She scoffed, rolled her eyes. She said too much. Lisa always did when she lied. She over-explained. She ran her mouth. Because she was not really trying to convince me. She was trying to convince herself. I straightened up, put my hands together, and looked her square in the eye. You finished. She frowned. What? Are you done with the act? Her lips parted, like she wanted to say something else, but I kept going. I do not need you to admit anything. I already know what happened. A pause. Then she scoffed again and shook her head. You are insane. What exactly do you think you know? I smiled, calm and quiet. I know about the charter boat, I said. The one you left for before sunrise. The one you conveniently forgot to mention. Her breath hitched. Just barely. I know you were not out there alone. She shifted in her seat. And I know exactly who you were with. Now her face drained. Pale. Eyes wide. That was the moment. The exact second she realized the game was over. She did not ask, who do you think I was with? She did not feign confusion. Because she already knew. Now she had two choices. Lie more or run. Her fingers closed tighter around her phone, knuckles going stiff. She glanced at the door. I raised my eyebrows, thinking about making a run for it. Her head snapped back to me. I would not, I said, still relaxed. Because if you walk out that door right now, I will come find you. And I promise what happens next, you will not like. Lisa's jaw locked. Is that a threat? I laughed once. No, it is a promise. She went quiet. I gave her time to let that sink in. Then I stood and stretched, real casual, like we had just wrapped up a conversation about the weather. You want to keep spinning lies? That is fine. You want to play the victim, say I am paranoid? Go for it. But the truth. I leaned in again. You already know it. And now so do I. Her throat moved as she swallowed hard. She was coming apart. Finally, I walked over to the sliding glass door, pushed it open, and let the breeze roll in. Warm air, soft waves, the distant thump of bass from a speaker on the beach. Behind me, Lisa did not move. Still frozen on the bed, still holding that phone like her life depended on it. I let the silence stretch again. And then, without turning around, I said, "How long?" She drew in a breath, quick and sharp. I turned back. "How long has it been happening?" Her mouth opened. I do not. "Stop," I said, voice hard. "Do not lie to me anymore." Her lip trembled. "It was just a mistake." I tilted my head. "A mistake." Tears welled in her eyes. "It did not mean anything." I laughed. No joy in it. "If it meant nothing, you would not be trembling like that." She placed a hand to her forehead, her breathing shaky and uneven. "Can we not do this right now? Can we talk later? Please." "Sure," I said. "Later." She exhaled, relieved. I took one step forward. "But not here." Lisa looked up fast. "What?" "You're not staying in this room tonight," I said. "Pack your things." Her face dropped. "Wait, no," I said, pointing at her suitcase. "You chose your path. Now walk it." She looked at me, eyes full of panic. "Please." I shook my head. "Go find Marco. See if he has room on that boat of his." Tears spilled. She was crying now. But me? I felt nothing. I stepped out onto the balcony, letting the breeze cool the fire inside me. I did not need to hear another word. Not one more lie. For the first time since this started, I was the one steering this ship. Lisa stayed frozen, like she could not decide whether to beg or bolt. And I let her sit in that moment. She wiped her face like that would fix something. It would not. "You do not mean this," she said quietly. I turned my head slightly. "No, you are just mad. You are hurt. We can talk. This does not have to end like this." "Talk," I repeated, nearly laughing. "You had time to talk, but you chose to keep secrets instead." I pointed again. "Now you pack. That is your next move." She clenched her fists in her lap. "Where am I supposed to go?" I shrugged. "Figure it out." Her jaw dropped, like she cannot believe I meant it. Like she thought I would still be the same man who once put her first in everything. That guy? He was gone. She tried again, voice softer, pulling out that tone she always used when she wanted me wrapped around her finger. "I know I messed up, but we can fix this. I love you." I held up a hand. "Stop." She flinched. That hit harder than anything else. Because she knew. She had lost me. "You do not love me," I said, stepping forward slowly. Lisa instinctively pulled back, her posture tense like she expected something worse. "You love convenience. You love the easy life I built around you. You love that I never questioned you, that I always trusted you. But love? Real love? No, Lisa, you gave that up the minute you stepped onto that boat with him." She shook her head, tears sliding down her cheeks. "It was not like that." "Then tell me what it was like," I said, my tone flat as stone. "Explain to me how vanishing at sunrise with another man, lying to my face, and walking back in here like I was invisible. Tell me what that means to you." Her lips pressed together, trembling. She could not look me in the eye. That was answer enough. I turned back toward the balcony. "You have 10 minutes. Lisa blinked. "What? 10 minutes?" I repeated. "Pack your things. Walk out that door." "No," she said, her voice cracking. "You cannot just throw me out." I turned slowly, watching her panic grow. "Why not?" "Because we are married," she said, motioning around the room like that meant something. I let out a quiet, bitter laugh. "No, we were married. Past tense." Her face fell completely. "You do not mean that." I stared her down. "I do. I want to go on, Lisa. Do you hear me? Do you actually understand what I'm telling you?" She wiped her face with one hand, standing slowly like she thought maybe I would change my mind if she looked small enough. "You do not have to do this," she said in a whisper. "We can still fix it." "Stop talking," I said, my voice sharp enough to make her jump. "Just stop." She swallowed hard and clutched the hem of her dress like it would anchor her in place. "I was going to tell you," she whispered. "I just did not know how." I shook my head and exhaled slowly. "You were never going to say a word, Lisa. If I had not found out, you would have kept sneaking around. You would have smiled at me over breakfast, kissed me good night, and kept lying. That is not true." Then, when I asked, "When were you going to tell me? On the flight home? A few weeks from now? Or never?" She said nothing. I nodded once. That is what I thought. She stood there in silence for another moment. Then, finally, she turned toward the suitcase in the corner and unzipped it. Her hands were shaking as she started folding her clothes. I walked out onto the balcony again. I let her pack in silence. Out there, the sea kept rolling in like nothing had changed. Vacationers still laughed in the distance. A few birds cut through the sky. But inside that hotel room, the mood was different now. She was quiet, just the occasional sound of her moving around, and now and then the sharp sniff of someone trying not to cry. I did not feel bad. Not at all. I had given Lisa 12 years. A home. A life. And this was how she chose to repay it. When I heard the suitcase zip shut, I turned around. She stood by the door, one hand on the handle, her eyes red, her shoulders slumped. "Where am I supposed to go?" she asked softly. I shrugged. "Ask your boyfriend. Maybe he has room." She recoiled at the word like it stung her. "Please," she said, her voice trembling. "Can we talk? When we get home." I walked toward her, slow and steady, stopping just a few inches away. "There is no we anymore, Lisa." Her tears fell faster now. "I never wanted to hurt you." I looked at her for a long second, letting the silence say most of it. Then I gave her one last truth. "You should have thought of that before you slept with him." She gasped, choking on a sob, grabbed the suitcase handle, and turned for the door. She paused once, just for a second, like she thought I might stop her. I did not. She left, and just like that, she was gone. I stood there in the silence she left behind. The door clicked shut, and I let out a long, slow breath, rubbing my hand across my face. 12 years. Over. I did not feel heartbroken. I felt lighter. I walked back to the bed, sat down at the edge, and looked around the room. Everything was still in its place, but it all felt different now. Clearer. The air was easier to breathe. The weight I had carried for months was gone. A week ago, I might have done anything to keep her. I would have forgiven her, believed her lies, blamed myself. But not anymore. Now I felt nothing for her but resentment. I stood again and walked onto the balcony, leaned on the railing, and looked down at the beach. Families played in the surf. Couples walked in the sand. Everything looked normal. No one would ever guess that, just a few floors above, a marriage had ended. I pulled out my phone. No messages. No missed calls. She had not tried to reach out. Good. She understood now. There was no way back. I opened my airline app, found the next flight home. The earliest I could get out was tomorrow morning. That was fine. I would leave first thing, but I would not be spending another night in that room. I grabbed my wallet, pocketed my phone, and walked out. I did not look for Lisa. I did not need to. An hour later, I was sitting at the outdoor bar with a glass of whiskey in front of me when I saw her. She stood near the marina, her suitcase still at her side, looking around like she had no idea what to do next. Good. I watched her for a moment. She did not call Marco. She did not walk toward anyone. She just stood there, staring out at the sea like she was starting to realize just how badly she had screwed up. Then, slowly, her eyes drifted across the crowd. She saw me, and for 1 second, her whole body tensed. She froze. Our eyes met. She took a half step forward, like she wanted to say something. To come over. To try one last time. I just shook my head once. That was all. Her mouth opened slightly, but she stopped herself. She knew. There was nothing left to say. So she turned away, and I never looked back. The flight back was quiet. I sat by the window, staring out at the sky, letting the hum of the engine settle my thoughts. I did not think about her. Not once. I did not think about the last 12 years, or what could have been, because the truth was simple. I had done nothing wrong. She made her choice, and she lost everything because of it. When the plane touched down, I did not check to see if she had returned home. I did not text her. I did not call. I already had an appointment with a lawyer. I would file for divorce the moment I stepped through my front door. And when those papers were delivered to her, I would not be waiting for her reply. As far as I was concerned, Lisa was a closed chapter, a name on paper, a memory I had no reason to revisit, a mistake I would never make again. And me? I was finally free.